Alright, looks like we already have 3 people in. I just tweeted out the link. I'm going to go ahead and just get started. I won't make you guys wait around. Let me know also how the audio is. I kind of tried to tweak it beforehand. If I'm too loud or if the game is too loud, just let me know and I can adjust as needed. This is way overdue. It has been a crazy, crazy time, as I'm sure you all are sure. And as I'm sure that you guys have all experienced. Yeah, it's been nuts.
Titan must be having a different effect on Ivy. Her plants are growing. They'll soon be out of control.
Alright, so guys who have played this, how long do you think until we get to the end of this game? I'm going to try to beat it this morning. Let's just get this playthrough over with.
Plants are mutating further.
I think I can do it in probably 2 hours. 90 minutes to 2 hours. Let's see how fast we can do this thing.
Contains similar spores to the ones Ivy used to attack Gotham last year. They're deadly.
This was a very, impromptu stream also. So I don't necessarily expect tons of people to join. It's been the most frustrating thing about everything that's going on is that I just do not have, the schedule I used to have. So I don't really have, a set schedule that I can stream on anymore. Alright, hello there, I'm new here, but I've been watching all of your content recently, so keep up the good work. Thank you so much, dude. That really means a lot. Okay, that's clearly not the way. I've been playing, Ghost of Tsushima in all my free time recently, which I don't have tons of, but... yeah, so I'm whenever I play a game excessively, I forget, every other control scheme, so I'm, just trying to kind of get... well, I don't forget it, I just, get kind of clunky at it, so... Am I going to talk about the Injustice 3 tease? I'm kind of waiting for more information, to be honest, because they did the whole thing where it's, he did I, then N, then Z, so I know that there's, a theory, oh, it's a zombie game, but the fact that it's Tom King who's teasing this and not Ed Boon leads me to kind of fear that it's just a comic rather than a game.
Poison Ivy. She teamed up with Joker.
All that matters is that I can stop the plants taking over the island, but...
There's always a but, isn't there?
But I don't know. Drake, what do you think? Do you think it's a game, or...
The door in the sewers
yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting.
That monster's got his own special cell. It's right below the transfer room back in intensive treatment. Elevator goes right down to an old sewer.
Yeah, so Slickmomp has... He started a playthrough. I know that Luke streams a lot. I just never have time to stream. I've technically been doing this playthrough...
Thanks, Cash.
I honestly don't even know when. I think the beginning of this year or something. I just haven't had time to stream, so we're going to try to finish this up, and I'm not going to jump right into Arkham City. I'm going to go back to, I don't know, maybe I'll do a playthrough of the Last of Us games or something, and, I kind of want to break it up, because people love the Batman content on the channel, and hopefully we get stuff at DC Fandom, but I don't want to, run out of playthroughs at once, but yeah. I am so freaking wiped right now. I've had to work every day this week. So I'm a part-time employee, but they've had me working a full-time schedule for a few months now. and I'm starting up my courses again soon in the fall, and it kind of sucks. My job I have to get up super early for, and then I have tons of other stuff that I'm working on. Yeah, it's kind of been a nightmare. So I'm like super sleep deprived, so if I seem kind of out of it on the stream, that's why. I haven't gotten tons of sleep because they've been working me more than I was available for. And it's not that I'm opposed to working a full-time job or anything, it's that, you know, when you're a full-time college student and you're trying to earn money at a part-time job, and, you know, if you're like me and trying to build a career in a different field, it becomes very, I don't know, it just becomes very busy very quickly. And so then working 40-hour work weeks becomes a little bit excessive, because I'm essentially between trying to get started up with college again this year. I mean, that's taking probably 2 hours a day. I'm at work 8 hours a day, and then I'm working on screenplays for like another 4 hours a day usually. So it just wears you out very quickly. And then on top of that, you know, I'm trying to play the current releases that are out, like Ghost of Tsushima. I don't know. It's been like crazy because the whole pandemic kind of screwed everything up, and it's very difficult to get to sort of like readjust into a reasonable situation. The wrong way. Whoops. Okay, so I think we have enough people in here that I can kind of get started with the topic that I wanted to do today. One thing that people have kind of... I'm going to turn this down just a little bit. We've all played this game. That should be good. Some people have been asking me if they can, like, read my screenplays, if they can... you know, hear my outlines. Like, people know I have an outline for a Superman trilogy, for example. The short answer is no. I'm not going to tell people, like, what I'm writing, because it's a very delicate process. Like, we're just going to restart that. Freaking snipers. But it's very delicate. Before you... Like, in my position, for example, I don't really have the rights to any of the IPs that I'm, you know, have outlines for. I don't, and don't get me wrong, and sorry, like I said, I'm sleep deprived, so I'm all over the place. Let me organize this a little bit better. So, in my position, I can outline, like, a Superman film, but I do not own the IP. I cannot write a script for it. If I did, it would be a waste of time. Like, you can do a fan fiction type thing, but that's a waste of time. I don't want to give up ideas for what I would do if I were given permission to do a Superman IP, in case I ever get that opportunity. I do have original IPs, which are the screenplays I'm working on. With those, it's kind of the same deal. If the screenplay is everywhere before, you know, an agent or a manager sees it, then they'll be less inclined to pick it up, because it's not anything fresh. It's something that's already out there that people already know about, and so, you know, I'm not going to do that. But what I am willing to do is talk about something that perhaps I don't think I'll have the opportunity to make. So, for example, today I would like to just kind of run you guys through how I would do a Batman game. How I would direct it, how I would, you know, kind of write it, what the mechanics would be, what I would change from the Arkham games. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I just kind of want to show you guys how my creative process works when it comes to creating this stuff. So, let's say I'm given permission to do a new Batman IP. So it wouldn't be connected to the Arkham games. It would be its own original thing. And, you know, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this too. Like, how would you do it, for example? But I personally would do a reboot from Arkham, just because with Arkham, you know, as great as it is, it just isn't my vision. And so I would like to start something fresh. The mechanics would be very different. It would be a different formula. It would not all take place in one night. I think that the best way I can explain some of the mechanics that I would do for this thing is just by walking you through kind of what the first mission would be. And so the first thing that would happen is that this would be a game pretty much centered around the Bat family. So Dick Grayson would be involved, Barbara Gordon would be involved. If there was a sequel, that's when we'd introduce, like, Jason Todd, for example. In this first game, it would be a Batman and Robin and Batgirl game. And the game would open up with you in Wayne Manor. It would kind of be like Batman the Telltale series, where you get to go around and interact with some of the guests. The first one would probably be scripted, like you go see Commissioner Gordon or something. And I would... this is kind of where I would already start the twist. So you have this Bruce Wayne gameplay. And there would actually be Bruce Wayne-centered missions. So the way that these would work is they would be... kind of like Mass Effect, where you get some choice system, but it's not like full-on Telltale game. It's just these occasional dialogue options that can open up different side missions, and maybe they can affect and impact certain things in the future. So, for example, you could go talk to Harvey Dent, and he could start telling you about his campaign for district attorney, and depending on how you respond, you could say, yeah, I'd like to talk more to you about this, and it would open up a side mission where you can go as Bruce Wayne and talk to him. Or you can say not interested, and then later when he becomes Two-Face, for example... Oh, I forgot those were mined. So then, for example, maybe he's more pissed at you, or maybe you go back later as Bruce Wayne and need help with a case that you're working on as Batman, and he's not willing to help you because you wouldn't even, talk to him about his campaign. So it would be choices like that are somewhat inconsequential in the short term, but they also... they'd add some nuance to the game where you'd get to experience different things as Bruce Wayne, and I think that would just change up the gameplay so substantially. So, oh my gosh, this game is so freaking loud. See how long it takes for them to notice me. Oh, there he goes. Okay. That one was doomed. That, okay. So, I am so off track here. I probably shouldn't have even talked about this because I'm just too tired. But, so basically, long story short, with Bruce Wayne, you can go do gameplay as Bruce Wayne. It's kind of like Mass Effect. You have dialogue options. You can go kind of interact with different people, open up optional side missions, and change sort of the course of some of those experiences. Like, for example, maybe before he's Scarecrow, you could hire Jonathan Crane as, a worker at Wayne Industries or something. Or, maybe you could even invest in different companies. So think about it like you could invest in Arkham Asylum, and then maybe you can help manage it a little bit. Not, again, to like a huge degree, but then, so for example, if you have access to Arkham Asylum and have invested in it, maybe you can go in as Batman and talk to some of the criminals, or you can go and try to get information from people that you've locked up previously in the game. Whereas otherwise, you could go and invest in the GCPD as Bruce Wayne, and that gives you access to some of their tech, so you can kind of build a back door into it and gain upgrades from that. So it could, I don't know. I just think that this heavy customization would be the key factor, because talking about Batman gameplay, so there would of course be a campaign similar to something like this, like Arkham Asylum. Obviously, it would be much longer. Like, it would be probably closer to 15 to 20 hours instead of 5. But you'd have like that basic Batman story. It would be about the Bat family. And then you would also have, some side missions, but rather than ending. So, like, think about the Hush mission in Arkham City. Rather than just ending right there, you would get, instead it would put him in the Nemesis system. So once a villain is revealed, so once you finish up a side mission that investigates a specific villain, they would become part of a Nemesis system. And so, if you are defeated in battle and have to run away, or because it's also a dual play game, I would add a feature in which you can, send out a tracking beacon or a, I don't know, what's that even freaking called? I am so out of it. You could send a beacon to Robin and Batgirl and say, I need help, and then it would switch you over to one of them, and you'd have a rescue mission where you have to go save Batman in a specific amount of time or something. So that could be kind of a last chance before death. With the Nemesis system also, there would be a lot of functionality when it comes to customization. So in the like you look at the Batsuit, for example. Before you go and fight Bane, you would be briefed on Bane. And you would kind of be given, oh my gosh. So, like, you'd be briefed before you face a mission. So, like, if you go to fight Bane, you would probably want to don heavier armor. You'd probably want to put on a metal outfit. You'd probably want to bulk up, and it would make you slower and less stealthy, but you'd be able to deal more damage and take more damage. If you're going to fight, you know, let's say Shiva, for example, you'd want to wear something a lot lighter. You'd probably want to wear some kind of fabric, and it would make you easier to kill, but it would also allow you to be much stealthier and a lot more agile. So I think that would be an interesting thing to implement. It would add a lot of variety to boss battles. The side missions before they're added to the Nemesis system would be based around finding their weaknesses and how you can defeat them, and maybe their fears that you can exploit. And so, like, if you were to go fight, you know, say Scarecrow before you've done this investigative work, he would more than likely defeat you. Whereas if you go in and you've studied him and you know the gadgetry that you need to fight him, then you'll have much higher chances of success. And, you know, say you don't feel like fighting a specific villain or something, you can send Robin and Batgirl out to deal with it for you. You can have them pretty much go do NPC missions, and there would just be a statistic on the likelihood of them defeating said villain based on how leveled up you've made them, how much you've invested into their gadgets and their loadouts. So I think that the main difference that I would make when it comes to doing a Batman game from a mechanics standpoint is just a lot more in terms of customization. And each mission, especially in this Nemesis system, which would pretty much replace you know, the payoff of side missions, so you'd still have, like, missions kind of like the Identity Thief or whatever, but then when it comes to actually fighting the villains, then you get a lot more, I don't know, it becomes, I think, something that really puts you in the Batman mindset, because you have to think of every single encounter, you have to really plan for it, and if you like take painstaking measures to really prepare for every encounter, you'll be successful. And if you don't, then more than likely you'll fail. And obviously dual play would be an option, and the main campaign would still be very like structured, and it would be very linear like an Arkham game, just so that you can still get that experience. But then outside of that, I really feel like open worlds, particularly in superhero games, really need to innovate, because even playing Ghost of Tsushima, I've enjoyed it, but I'm just sick of open worlds. They're never, I don't know, they just all feel way too similar to me. And this is coming from someone who thinks that Ghost of Tsushima is better than any Assassin's Creed game. I just feel like Assassin's Creed has almost oversaturated the open world, especially historical, but just kind of the open world busy work formula, and I'm kind of sick of it. I'm ready for them to innovate and really put me in a position where I can have experiences where I feel like I'm doing things that I would do as Batman, rather than like, oh, I'm going to go collect Riddler trophies again or something. So thank you for bearing with me through that very rambly explanation on how I would perhaps implement features in a Batman game. Like I said, I'm very sleep deprived, and so I don't know. There's definitely a much more cohesive way that I'm sure that I could have eloquently put all that. That's the best you're gonna get, though. In terms of story, I've always loved Batman stories in which it begins kind of with, you know, pretty reasonable threats. So, like, you know, it's pretty much just crime wars going on. You have Falcone and Black Mask and all those guys. And then by the end, I like when it's supervillains. So I like seeing that evolution of Gotham where they're trying to kill Batman, and by the end of it, he's facing super criminals. It's something that the Gotham TV show kind of did. I didn't love that show, though. And also, you know, I guess Arkham Origins did that to a degree as well. But I'd love a deep dive in that, and I would really focus on Robin's origin story. I'd build that relationship between Batman and the Bat family. One of the biggest complaints I see about the Arkham games is that Batman feels too stoic and doesn't have enough emotion, and I think that would fix that. So that's kind of the direction I would go. Joker would not be the main villain, although I would set him up for a sequel, potentially. I would love to have kind of a mastermind. Like, I'd probably look at characters like Black Mask, for example. He'd be a big candidate for the main villain, so would Hush. But yeah. What are my thoughts on the Gotham City Mob show? Are you talking about the police show they announced, or would this be a different one? For me, personally, I don't think you need both. I feel like you can explore both elements in a single show. I am excited to see what... Thanks for joining us, Greg. I know you can only stay for a minute. But, yeah, that's awesome. I didn't like Gotham, the show. I really didn't. I think that because Matt Reeves is spearheading this, and because it will be a deeper dive into the new movie universe that we're getting, I really do think that this new Gotham City show will be better, and it will probably be very different because they won't feel pressured to put in, like, huge supervillains. But with that said, maybe they can showcase supervillains that won't make the cut in the film.
He's all yours, Joker.
Red Hood asked why I thought Fallen Order was mediocre. It doesn't do anything unique, in my opinion. It's every element of it is pretty weak. I think that the combat is a Dark Souls ripoff. I think that the parkour is a much weaker version of Prince of Persia parkour. I think that the story is very mid. It almost gets really good a few times, but the structure of it it makes it fall so flat. It's like you'll have this really great explosive plot point, and then all of a sudden it's like, now return to your ship, and you have to spend the next like 30 minutes just going back to your ship, and so then all of the energy that was in that plot point is just gone. So I don't know. I liked Fallen Order. I don't think I'll ever play it again. I'll never have the desire to do it. People say the same thing about Ghost of Tsushima. Yeah, I think Ghost of Tsushima is much more innovative, though. I think it's way better. Like, here's the thing. Jedi Fallen Order, it tried to do kind of a Naughty Dog style of game for Star Wars, but I think it's weaker than pretty much any Naughty Dog game. Ghost of Tsushima kind of followed the Assassin's Creed format. I think it's better than any Assassin's Creed game. Same thing could be said about superhero games. Spider-Man ripped off Arkham, but it did something different. It innovated, it did new things, it didn't copy the gameplay, the story was a very different structure. It just wasn't... Jedi Fallen Order just didn't do much for me. It's not that it can't work for other people. I'm glad other people enjoy stuff. It's just that for me, I thought it was a very mediocre game. The graphics didn't blow me away, the gameplay didn't blow me away, the story didn't blow me away. It was a fun Star Wars experience that I don't think added to the saga much at all. I didn't think that it innovated really from a gameplay perspective, so... How'd I feel about the Phantasm as a main villain in a Batman game? I would be very down for that. I think that that is a character that was really great in the Mask of the Phantasm film. But I also think that, you know, she's kind of underrated. That's really her only big appearance that we've seen in the mainstream, so I would like to see more of that character. With that said, I think that she's very similar to this formula that you'll find. Like, Paul Dini loves writing mysterious characters that pull the strings and stuff, and so, like, you know, for example, we see Hush, and even more historically we've seen Ra's al Ghul. kind of do this thing where they're almost an anti-hero. So I think that it would be great to see more of her. I just don't know if... I think that she'd need to stand out from anyone else. How many games do I think will be revealed at DC Fandom? I think someone also asked how excited I am for DC Fandom. What I think we'll see at DC Fandom, sorry. I think we'll see a lot for film. I think that we'll see something for The Suicide Squad. We'll definitely see Zack Snyder's Justice League cut trailer. We'll see a few other things, I'm sure. In regards to film, we'll probably see stuff for Wonder Woman 84. When it comes to games, I think we'll probably get... I think we'll get between 2 and 4. I wouldn't bet any more than that, but that's my guess. Is we'll probably get the Batman game, maybe the Suicide Squad game. If they're doing Injustice 3, perhaps, but I'm not counting on it. You know, and there might be like one other big secret thing that blows us away, but I wouldn't necessarily count on it. I think more likely than not, we'll probably see 2.
What are you, Batman? Chicken?
Think we'll get any gameplay from Gotham Knights at Fandom or just the reveal trailer? I honestly think they will probably do a little bit more than just a reveal trailer. I think that we'll probably get... I wouldn't count on much, but my guess is that they will say, and here's some gameplay. Now, for the Suicide Squad game from Rocksteady, I don't think we'll see anything in terms of gameplay, but yeah, I think for Gotham Knights, we'll probably see some kind of gameplay. I just think that I don't know, they were trying to push that game out this year, allegedly. My guess is it will be pushed back to sometime next year, but I mean, still, they know how anxious people are to see this game. There's a reason that they're not just dropping it. They're waiting for this big event to do it at, so I don't know. I think it would be very tone-deaf if they simply, you know, just showed like a reveal trailer or a like brief CGI teaser or something. Updates on Hillman Hotel. It is still being worked on. Yes, it's gone a lot slower. The game is looking good. I'm trying to like not say too much, but it's looking very good. Hopefully it'll come out a little bit later this year. It's not going to maintain its September release date. I don't think it'll probably be closer to October or November, just because of some challenges that have come up for my personal time due to COVID. It's really screwed up my schedule, and so I don't have as much time as I did to work on it because I'm so busy trying to do other things, trying to figure out how I'm going to do school this year, trying to figure out how I'm going to, you know, I've just been so busy with so much that I just have not had the same amount of time that I usually do to work on it. But it is looking very good. I think you guys will really enjoy it. It's a good exploration game with some fun horror elements, and yeah. How many Karens have I dealt with this week? Too many, dude. My job freaking sucks, but I can't get a new one because the economy is crap right now, thanks again to COVID. So I'm kind of stuck at this horrible job where I am underpaid, and essentially I'm pretty much an acting manager. I'm the only one ever at the store. I get paid about, I don't want to say, it's under $10 an hour. Well under $10 an hour. Here in Utah, the national, or not the national, the state minimum wage is $7.25. I get more than that, but I get less than 10, and it's lower than, it's closer to $7.25 than 10. Let's put it that way. And I go in for 8 hours a day. I work at a dry cleaners where I don't actually clean the clothes. They get sent to another location to be cleaned, and then they're brought back for the customer to pick up. I'm the only person there. I'm pretty much acting manager. I deal with every angry customer, and it's awful. I truly hate it. It's difficult because, for me, most people know this, I'm an aspiring filmmaker. Now, there's not a lot of opportunities when it comes to that to make tons of money doing film until a certain degree. It's not a lucrative business. In fact, there's a lot of expenses. You have to pay for the equipment. You have to pay to get actors to come out and shoot stuff. So until you get opportunities, it's a very expensive career to try to start. So... why does everyone seem so dissatisfied with Avengers now? Or right now? It's because, honestly, I think the marketing has been crap. I think that the marketing is really, really bad. I have not seen the newest War Table, so I will not comment on that. But the one before then I thought was really... I don't know. They just haven't done anything to get me excited for the game. I do think it has a lot of potential. I just... I know that a lot of playtesters have said it's boring, and I don't see a lot of evidence that it won't be. I think it looks kind of generic. They seem almost embarrassed that there's not an open world rather than just embracing that that's not the style of game it is, because it doesn't have to be. I feel like they're just being very pretentious about it. They're acting like it's this, like, the best superhero game ever made, when if they would just market it as kind of what it is, like a fun beat-em-up mashup game where you're the Avengers characters, I think they'd be way more successful if they were just trying to tell a more fun Avengers story rather than trying to do like this dark Avengers Endgame Incredibles 2 thing. I don't know. It hasn't gotten me excited, but I'm still gonna buy it. I still think that a lot of work has been put into it, and I think that it could come off as being one of the most fun games. I don't think it will be game of the year or a great game, but I think it could be a fun, good game, you know. I did see the Hawkeye design. I actually do like it. I think the buzz cut's a little much, but I think it looks good. Thoughts on Tom King? I don't know enough to really give my thoughts. I know that he's done like some weird stuff in the comics, from what I've heard at least. I don't have an issue with him because to be fair, I haven't read much of his stuff. I know that there was some drama recently with him. I just haven't invested tons of attention into Tom King. I haven't kept up much on what's going on that front. Here's the thing. So actually, I kind of was going to do a video to address this, but I decided not to. I don't know. We'll watch this cutscene before I respond to this really quick. Avengers would be great if they took more time and launched with more characters. Yeah, I think so. I don't necessarily think you need tons of characters, though. If they just advertise more fun elements, it almost looks grindy to me. Like, it looks like just a very generic, kind of not super fun to play game in a lot of aspects. Really hope WB Montreal innovates on the Arkham formula. Yeah, a lot of the guys who were here earlier heard me stammer through an attempt at explaining how I would do a Batman game. Yeah, I hope there's a lot of changes with the new one. Who's my personal favorite video game director? I honestly don't really have one. I think that there are a lot of really great ones. And I know that this kind of sounds like a non-answer, but like, I think Neil Druckmann is really awesome. I think Brian Intihar is really awesome. I think Sefton Hill is really awesome, but they're all very different too. They all have very unique tones. It's the same reason I don't have like a favorite writer or director. Like, you know, Aaron Sorkin, I just watched a bunch of his movies because I'm watching his masterclass. So I just watched The Social Network and Steve Jobs, and I thought both were fantastic. Would Christopher Nolan make those movies? No, he wouldn't. It's just not his style. Is it better than a Chris Nolan movie? Not necessarily. It's just very different. So I don't think that I have like a favorite, but I have a lot that I, you know, enjoy the content they put out. And yes, Luke, I am planning on finishing the game this stream. So we're going to try to quickly work our way through this. I believe we have this water treatment facility, fight Poison Ivy, and then fight Mega Joker at the end. And then I think we're done. So Marvel isn't a very good character. Well, here's the thing, and this is kind of what I wanted to respond to, is that... So I uploaded a highlight from the Anonymous Throwdown podcast where I was talking to Evan, Falarka, and Dustin, our other friend. And you should definitely check out our podcast if you haven't. It's the Anonymous Throwdown podcast. But we talked about Avengers, and all three of us had concerns with it. And we were just kind of explaining it. So I uploaded a highlight of that to my channel, and it got, like, dislike bombed. Like, it's not like the... I don't know. I still have a ratio of more upvotes than downvotes, but I had to turn off comments because like even a week after I'd posted it, I was still just getting like hate mail on it, essentially, where it was like, how dare you, you're ruining these devs' lives by, you know, not loving the game blindly. And I'm like, that's not the point at all. And I kind of had a similar thing when I talked about the pros and cons of Xbox or Microsoft potentially buying DC, or sorry, Warner Brothers Games, not DC, Warner Brothers Games. People were like, you're a Sony pony because you said that you don't like exclusivity. I'm like, that's literally not what I said. I said I don't like exclusivity. I even hounded Sony more than I did Microsoft in that video. So when it comes down to the Avengers one, though, people were really mad, and they're like, you can't judge a game based on a trailer. And my response is, you're right, and we're not judging the game, we're judging the marketing. Now, people who are like, yeah, the game's gonna suck, like, that I don't get, because we haven't played the game. Of course we don't know if it's gonna suck yet. So when you hear me say that, like, Avengers isn't really doing it for me yet, I'm talking about the marketing. If the game is, like, the greatest superhero game ever made, then I will totally put that in my review. And then my issue will be with the marketing, not the game itself. My concern is that playtesters are saying that it's boring as well. So that's kind of where the concern comes in. But I'm going to be honest. I mean, I'm never going to just give an opinion because it's popular. I didn't say I hated The Last of Us 2 because it was a popular opinion to hate it at the time. I didn't say Ghost of Tsushima was a masterpiece, even though a lot of people were pushing that when it first came out. So... Okay, but Red Hood, here's the thing. Yes, wait till you play, but is this Anthem? No, it might be an Anthem clone, but you don't know that because you haven't played the game. And I don't know, I think that when you go into an experience wanting to hate it, or having it set in your mind that you are going to hate it, you're doing yourself a disservice because you're not giving yourself a chance to enjoy something. Yeah, like, for example, I think that the Venom movie is great. Well, not great. I don't think it's a great movie, but I think it's very entertaining. That's a better way. That's a better way of putting that. I think it's a very entertaining movie, but if I'd have gone in, like, looking at reviews and saying, oh, this is going to freaking suck, I would have deprived myself of enjoying it. Where the heck is he? There he is. So, with Avengers, I mean... You know, I don't even necessarily say you must play it before you decide if it's going to be an experience you enjoy or not. I mean, you can watch the marketing now and say, I don't think this one's for me. But to blindly hate on it and criticize people who are excited for it, you know, that's kind of low. And then to, like, I don't know. I just think that it's better to wait for, like, a review or some kind of... You know, just see what the final product actually is before it becomes an issue. Objectively, which do you think is better, Batman Arkham City or Red Dead 2? Red Dead 2, objectively, is a better game. Like, no questions asked. It's better graphically, better technologically. It's better from an open world standpoint, and there's just so much more that they are able to accomplish. Now, that's the consequence of one of them releasing in 2011 from a development team of about 96 developers, and one releasing in 2018 that had been worked on for 5 years by a team of I don't even know how many. So, objectively, I do think Red Dead 2 is better. But which one would I play on a given weekend? Arkham City. That's not necessarily because I think that, like, subjectively I like it better. It's just a tighter... experience, and I don't know, I wouldn't say that one is necessarily better than the other. There is that objective standpoint where I do think Red Dead 2 is better, but I think both are pretty great. I'd say that because of how big of a Batman fan I am, then I probably would rather play Arkham City. Like, if I could only keep one, I'd keep Arkham City, but I think both are fantastic games. I love Red Dead 2. That's been one of my favorite games of this generation. Okay, so I gotta be honest, I have not played Red Dead Online. I really have wanted to. I just haven't had any time to even figure it out. I have wanted to try it. It looks really cool. Reason is I own the game on PlayStation, and currently I do my online activities on Xbox One. That's what I paid for. I do not have tons of money to go around right now, so $60 isn't a huge price for a PlayStation Plus account or whatever it is, but frustration with Rockstar recently is that they barely made any games for almost a decade. I think that it's the scale of their games. Rockstar makes games like Red Dead 2. That's one of the biggest games I've ever played. It's ridiculously huge. Same with like GTA 5. I mean, that wasn't even on this generation. That was from last generation, and that's still one of the biggest games of all time. Like, it's just ridiculously massive. So it comes a point where you gotta ask, would I prefer quantity or quality? For me, like, I even look at this wait that we've had for a new Batman game, and I'm happy that we've waited this long in the long run. It's been frustrating and a long wait, but I'm very excited to see what they've come up with, because now, I mean, they've had 7 years to build mechanics and build new features and build new graphics and build Unreal Engine 4 instead of Unreal Engine 3 into a great Batman experience. I'd rather have that than 3 more Arkham Origins clones, basically. Am I excited for Cyberpunk? I honestly don't think that that's up my alley. I think that I'll have to see what it actually is when it releases. But once they started saying stuff like it's gonna have in-depth sex scenes and you can customize your genitalia, I was like, what in the heck are we even talking about now? Like, that just feels so weird to me. So we'll have to see. If it catches my interest in the story, I would be interested in playing it. It just kind of, I don't know.
You've activated a sonar beacon down there.
It's one of those games that I wonder if it's actually going to live up to the hype, because it feels like it's an almost impossible task. Like, you look at Watch Dogs Legion, where that game, when it was announced, people were like, this is ridiculous, it's going to change the whole, like, landscape for gaming. And now people who've played it are kind of like, it kind of sucks, actually. So do I have any thoughts regarding Slick's pitch about Harley Quinn's revenge besides Hush being the main what if plot to Arkham Knight? So I believe that Slick Moff's pitch, if I'm remembering correctly, I know that he's talked to me about one, which is where, like, what if Harley Quinn's revenge was essentially the entire premise for Arkham Knight? So what if the whole plot of Arkham Knight was Harley Quinn getting revenge on Batman for the death of the Joker? I actually think that's a pretty cool premise, and you could kind of have that whole, like, Hush type of story where, you know, she's gathering all these villains and has this big plan to just kill Batman. I think that's really great. I don't know, like if I were writing it, that's probably not the direction I would go, but I think it's a solid idea. That's a solid concept, in my opinion. What was the original vision for Arkham Knight? So the original vision for Arkham Knight, there's rumors that always float around that Paul Dini had like an idea that Hush and Azrael would be main villains and whatnot. Paul Dini has gone on record and said he didn't have an idea for Arkham Knight. He said that by the time he kind of went back and was like, so what are we doing for this next game? Rocksteady was like, oh, we actually already have the idea that we're looking for. They kind of booted him out. They didn't really want him after Arkham City for whatever reason. I'm not exactly sure on the specifics on what went down. I just know that Sefton Hill thought he had a killer idea with Joker Blood Batman and stuff. And did it pay off? Not necessarily. I don't think it was a bad plot. I think it gets too much hate. I enjoy Arkham Knight a lot still, but it does not carry that same quality that Paul Dini brought to the games. Can I please make a video on my favorite games of this generation and give some key points to why? It would be great to see. So, generally I don't know, maybe. I guess as this generation is coming to a close, that could be an interesting way to sort of do a send-off to these current generation consoles. But I don't really want to do them all in one video. I'd rather break down, and I actually already have planned to kind of do some video essays on some of my favorite games of all time, not just of this generation, and why they worked. So, what games do I want to see get a remake? So, mine are never the most popular, and the reason is that the ones I want to see get a remake are too recent in a lot of people's opinion. So I would like to see the BioShock games. And I know, yep, that 2007 to 2013, they're not that old. However, they were made by a very small team. Those games were the consequence of being ideas that were a bit constricted by the budget and the team that they were given. I think that allowing BioShock to be just a fantastic, remake, where they don't even necessarily have to reinvent the game. They could just really do an overhaul on the graphical look of the world. I think the same with Arkham Asylum. I think if they essentially took Arkham Asylum and Arkham City and kept them pretty much the same and just did a complete graphical overhaul instead of just updating some lighting effects and some textures and stuff, I think that would be really interesting. I actually have started a series where I'm going to break these down in a lot more detail. I already did one on Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time. So if you guys want to see that, you can check it out. Who is writing the new Batman game? We don't know. What I can tell you is that Scott Snyder did not write the game. I have seen evidence, and seriously, people never believe me when I say this, but I have seen evidence. I've been asked to not say what it is, or to not screen share it or anything. I have evidence that Scott Snyder did not write the new Batman game. He was consulted for it, and he was a pretty major influence on the direction of the story. I believe he was on, at this point, it was about 2 years ago. And he worked on it for, I believe, about a year. What do I mean by Arkham Knight getting so much hate? So, a lot of people really do not like Arkham Knight. In the mainstream, it got good reviews. A lot of people enjoyed it. However, believe it or not, there is a huge group of the Arkham community that actually thinks Arkham Origins is like a significantly better game. And it's because they didn't think that the story made a lot of sense. They felt like it was a poor payoff for the trilogy that they'd been playing. They hated the Batmobile. So I sometimes feel like the story, for example, gets a little bit too much hate. Like, it's very easy to point out every issue, and it was a disappointing story. I'm not going to say like it was a masterpiece in hiding, because it's not. It's not a great Batman story. It's not a great conclusion to Arkham Asylum and Arkham City. But there's a lot of great things in it, too, that people seem to just sort of undermine when they're trashing it, so. We've gotten so confident it's a Batman game. What if we're wrong? I mean, I don't really... As long as it's a DC game, which it is confirmed to be a DC game, I'm fine, but I have seen evidence that it is a Batman game. I have not seen the game itself, but I have seen evidence that that's what it is.
I take it you felt that. Good.
So I'm not like... I can't say that like I've seen screenshots or anything, but I have seen some receipts. I've seen some stuff from certain people that indicate very heavily this is a Batman game. And also, I mean, just the teases that they've already put out. I mean, Court of Owls, the League of Assassins, the GCPD, allegedly, is what everyone thinks they are.
I was exposed to a wealth of new ideas. I began my day returning home and
Scan and open.
Every Arkham game is at least a 7 or 8. I'm the same way. Like, none of the games are bad. And that's the thing. Like, even when I tell people, like, Arkham Origins is my least favorite Arkham game, people are always like, you hate Origins? I'm like, no, I don't hate Origins. I just think it's the weakest out of the 4 games. But it's still a great game. Like, if you took away every other Arkham game and left Origins, I still think it would be a great Batman game.
It's been more difficult than I expected. The process is slow, difficult, and doesn't produce much antidote.
And the good news?
The chemical will definitely stop.
People were disappointed with Knight because it came after City. It had to top and failed. Yes. Exactly. How do you beat Arkham City? It's a perfect Batman game.
To create more, but I need to get out of here and find Ivy.
Thank God. Her plans have reached the Gotham River.
I'll give you guys my Arkham hot take. I actually kind of like the Batmobile. And I'm not just talking the races. Like, I actually like the tank mode, okay? I think it's not super Batman-y, but it's fun. I think it's a fun mechanic. It changes up the pace of the game, so you're not just doing stealth and combat. It kind of gives you something else to do, so. Do you play as Harley Quinn for half of the game? In what? In Slickmoff's pitch? I don't know. Yeah, you bash Batman's head in with your hammer at the beginning of the game. And then you play the first half as Harley Quinn. And then the second half is Batgirl. But Origins has better side missions, boss fights, even side missions. Subjectively, I don't think any of the Batman games have great boss battles. Origins is like kind of just the best by default, but I don't like Deathstroke. It's fine. Firefly, it's the Poison Ivy boss battle, just except he's flying instead of in a giant plant. Side missions, I don't love the side missions in either Origins or Knight. I think they're both very mid. And like I said, I don't hate Origins. I think it's a great Batman game. I just think Knight graphically is tons better. From a gameplay perspective, it's way more fun to just free roam in the world, so. Still confused how you'd handle citizens in a Batman game. I think, honestly, as somebody who is... I'm more of a filmmaker than a game dev, but as someone who has worked on... who has dabbled a bit in game development, I will say those are actually the most fun problems to try and figure out how to solve. You look at something that feels almost impossible. How can you make a Batman game where you're driving the Batmobile around, where there are civilians, and how can you make that a functional thing, where you have all this freedom as Batman, where you can walk up to citizens as Batman? Like, how does that even work? That's actually really fun, because then you start getting really creative ideas back. You know, you get, like, oh, well, maybe the citizens run away from Batman, but when you're playing as Robin, they'll come up and, like, high-five you or something. I mean, you look at Spider-Man, and the citizens really aren't a pivotal feature of the game. They are very much they're just a part of the backdrop. So, with the Batmobile, for example, you just have them run out of the way. You know, it's not super realistic, but none of the games really are. Or maybe what happens is if you run over a civilian, maybe you have to be really careful, because if you run over a civilian, maybe the GCPD will come after you and it will open up a mode in which you have to try and escape the GCPD, and it puts up a stopwatch, and you can challenge your friends and see how long each of you can last in the wanted segment where every cop in the city is after you. That could be cool. Was this literally just where I was? The heck? Top 3... What are my top 3 video games that are original IP? That's a really good question, actually. I'm gonna have to think about that, because that's really actually a great question. Okay, so I think I'm going here. I think I'm going to this main sewer junction, if I am not mistaken. A day-night cycle in a Batman game is a stupid request. I don't necessarily... I think if you take a day-night cycle as it is, so you take the premise of, like, you know, it's timed and stuff, I think that, yeah, that's kind of dumb. But think about it like this. Imagine if, you know, you've played as Batman for a while and then you want to have a change of pace. You can change it... You can go to, like, the Batcave and say, end day. Or, sorry, end night. And then it turns to day. And then you can play as Bruce Wayne. You can go and... you know, have like these really brief Mass Effect-esque side missions where you go and have a discussion and you have a very limited choice system that can open up different side missions. You could do detective work. You could be like, okay, I need to learn more about Two-Face. I'm going to go to the GCPD as Bruce Wayne and ask Commissioner Gordon if he has any information on it. And then that could build up your XP. It could help you design a gadget that could take down whatever Two-Face's operation is. So I think that there's ways to implement features like that. But again, you just have to really think outside the box for it. What type of Bat family members do I think should be in the new Batman game? For me, I'd start with... It depends on when in his career it is. I would personally start with just Dick Grayson and Barbara Gordon. I think if you oversaturate the story with too many characters at once, then it could sort of drown out the story.
But go ahead.
Joker's pumping all the waste products from the Titan process into that chamber. It acts as a kind of natural storage tank. Once it's full, it releases the water into the Gotham River. Normally, it's safe,
But this time it's full of Titan. How do I stop it?
I'm working on it. According to the plans I have on file, there are 3 control rooms. The first is directly above you.
I'll shut them all down.
What will happen if this Titan stuff reaches Gotham?
It won't reach Gotham.
Gotta move on. I want it done now. Done yet? Yeah, we're at full power. Pumping out stuff. What will we do? Who cares? What my mom was telling me. I know.
You want some of this?
Can you hear me? For the love of... I suppose that's...
Yes, like Ethan said, there were certain things in Arkham Origins that were kind of supposed to make Batman feel inexperienced. So there was, for example, a rumored feature where like you'd be grappling and then your grapnel line would break, or you'd trip over something. And I don't think those are great mechanics, but let me tell you this. If I was making Arkham Origins, it would be very stealth-based. It would be a complete reinvention of the free flow combat. Would be far more difficult. You wouldn't necessarily be as inclined to take on like 15 enemies at a time. You'd have to be a lot more strategic. And so I would make a less experienced Batman, but it would be not less fun. It would just be a different experience. It would require more thought from the player. I would also make the story a bit more small scale. Maybe add more parkour elements instead of the traditional grapnel glide.
Then what? Held him upside down and beat the crap out of him.
Yeah, so Dark Detective thinks that the game will probably not actually be like, you know, something where you're free roaming as Robin and Batgirl and all those guys. It'll probably just be dual play again. I think they might introduce more of it, though. My guess is that it will be way more than it ever was in Arkham Knight. We'll probably have a story that keeps all of these Bat family members relevant. I actually could see free roam with them. Mainly because with Arkham Knight, that was one of the biggest complaints, was that you couldn't free roam as, like, Robin and Dick Grayson and stuff. Or, sorry, as, like, Robin and Nightwing and Catwoman. So I'm sure that that's honestly been taken into account. If these characters are going to be huge points of the game, I could really see them being a lot more focused on. And it could be interesting if instead of giving Batman, like, 10 side missions, what if you gave him 5 and then Batgirl 5 and then Robin 5 and let each of them flesh their own stories out a little bit better. There we go. This is my favorite part.
That's the first pump disabled.
He calls Oracle.
Only 2 more to find.
Found one. Okay, so I'm seeing, like, some of you guys in the chat say, like, it'd be cool if we saw, like, you know, some of these lesser knowns or even some of the less used. Like, imagine if Red Hood was in the game, or Cassandra or Stephanie, or some of those characters. I think that's really true, and I would love to see them in a game. However, I think that upon hearing that this is kind of going to be a soft reboot, and they're kind of going to start their own new narrative for the Batman games, I think that they definitely need to start off with kind of a smaller, more recognizable group, and then they can really build off of that. If they try to jump in with, like, oh, and here's Red Hood, and here's Batwoman, and here's Batgirl, and here's Robin, and here's Nightwing, it's going to get oversaturated really fast. Some people are getting mad that this Batman game isn't a new universe. I understand why, in all honesty. I was mad for a bit. Well, actually, I don't think mad would be the right word. But, you know, I was apprehensive for sure, because the Arkham games are such a great adaptation of Batman, and it feels like they can still build off of it a lot. But I also think that giving Warner Brothers Games Montreal full creative control to do really whatever they want is going to pay off very well for them in the long run. So I'm definitely not biased either way. If they want to continue the Arkham games, I'm more than happy to see them do that. If they want to do a remake, or sorry, a reboot, then I also think that would be a fantastic direction to take the series in. Would I prefer a soft or full reboot? If they're going to reboot it, just do a full one. I don't want them to, like, reboot the narrative and then, like, keep the same art style and direction and stuff. What in the world? Return to Arkham is a broken piece of crap, I'm telling you guys. But I'm just not of the opinion that you should do a reboot of something and then not... I don't know. It would just be weird if they rebooted the story, but not the gameplay or the graphic style. If you're going to do a full reboot and want full creative control, then go all the way. Don't just go part way on that. Yo, so the petty children have found my stream. There's only 9 of us in here this morning because this is an impromptu stream, and I'm not a big YouTuber. Imagine being so petty that you saw one video and got so butthurt that now you are going into this stream and wasting your morning.
Come on, Bat, show yourself. Is this your fat kid?
Anything special planned for DC fandom? I wish. Unfortunately, that is the one day that my entire extended family decided that we are going to do a family picture. So, I am very excited to do that instead of watch DC Fandom. Hopefully it gets done early enough in the day that I can still, like, react to the game, and, yeah. Thought a soft reboot was where you don't reboot the story but make it disconnected. So, that is generally the case. But in terms of video games, it's kind of different because, like, with a film, a soft reboot would be like X-Men First Class, where technically it's in the same universe as the other X-Men films, but it's very much its own thing. I don't know. In video games, it's more along the lines of, like, you keep the same basic gameplay mechanics. It's kind of a confusing subject in a lot of ways, but yeah. Basically, the rumor is that the story will be a reboot, but the gameplay mechanics will not. If I were doing it, and I was keeping it in the Arkham games, I would change up the formula. I would maybe not even name it Arkham. I would keep it in continuity. Hey Bash, I'm gonna do whatever the hell I want in my stream, so you can deal with it. Also, thank you for the engagement. It actually really helps. I'm really close to getting monetization. I do this as a hobby, and so that's really nice of you to help out on that front. Thank you very much, sir. For the love. Okay. I wish that when they did these remasters that they brought some of the new mechanics from, like, Arkham City back into Arkham Asylum, because upon replay, this is definitely the clunkiest one. If Arkham Asylum had half the gameplay improvements of Arkham City, it would almost be perfect. I think it would. I think that this game, from an atmospheric standpoint, is phenomenal, and I think that it holds up really well on every element. It's just that the gameplay has been so improved upon later installments that going back, it feels a little bit clunky. Well. Any good mods in the chat? No, I haven't set up mods. Here. While we go through this death screen, let me see if I can,
Hey, someone help Bat Baby up off the floor.
Apologies to everybody. Okay, I am not okay with this. Okay, he's been hidden from the channel. We're also going to report him for some inappropriate behavior. Perfect. All right. Bash, you have been banned from the channel, and you have also been reported for hate speech, so good luck. All right, so I'm just going to concentrate on this really quick, guys, so I'll be right back with you. It's kind of funny how different streaming is, like, than playing it on your own. Because I'm sure, like, if you guys have seen my gameplay in my videos, because that actually is my gameplay. I'm not a sellout, like, Slick. Just kidding. He kind of does the... He takes other people's gameplay, you know. And I don't blame him, because recording your own takes for freaking ever. I hate doing it. I'm honestly probably just going to start taking other people's gameplay as well. When I'm locked into a game, I can get very good at it. But, see, like, what the hell was that? It's just very different, like, looking at the chat for 80% of the time rather than the game. And then you're kind of, like, hopefully just good enough at the game that you can kind of play it on autopilot. Honestly, like, I should probably, if I want to do it in this format, I should honestly probably almost pre-record the streams. And then I can, like, talk live to you guys while I do it or something. Red Hood, I actually do not play while I record. I record separately because you get too distracted playing the game. That's honestly why I don't really like doing streams, is because I don't play the game as well, and I feel like I'm way less good at talking during that. Okay, is he gonna randomly see me again? Let's see. See? Like, what in the world is going... That's so bizarre. Have we heard any other new features for the Batman game? We don't know anything. That's what's so frustrating. We've waited for so long, and we still just have next to no information. The problem with Arkham Asylum, I think in the long term, is that there's no way to escape encounters like that. So there'll be kind of an odd development choice, like you're still in the vent, but they randomly see you and start shooting, but it finishes your character animation of you taking the vent off before you can move.
Haven't you found him? What's keeping you? He's down there. You know it. So just do it. Ah!
Actually, it's more than just leaks for this new Batman game. We have actually gotten full teasers. Not like video teasers, but we've gotten...
Anyone got a plan?
We have seen evidence that this game exists, essentially. They have teased this game with cryptic images that relate to Batman, so... See if I can get in the vent before they shoot me to death. Nope.
Oh, I'd like to thank
This is honestly...
for their undying...
Thinking back on it, this is one of my least favorite Predator encounters in the game, just because it doesn't feel well designed for the mechanics of this game. Any Bat Family I'd like to see in DLC? Honestly, I don't know if I'd like them to withhold any characters for DLC. That is an interesting... I hadn't thought of that. That is interesting. Yeah, that actually could work really well, in all honesty. Okay, we're not doing the same thing again. We're gonna,
Don't be scared. The massive poisonous plants have probably stopped that by now. And if not, you're just...
yeah, that's a good idea.
How'd I get into this? I see Batman, he's going down. He'll die in this cave.
Okay, let's see. We're gonna be very smart this time.
You must not
So let me get this right. You stay up in wherever the hell you are, and we go poking around in some cave. Great.
Yeah, so what a lot of people don't know about this new Batman game is that it actually has Patrick Redding, who made the best Splinter Cell game, as the creative director. They have a lot of guys who used to be at like Ubisoft, and they have like a level designer who worked on the BioShock games. It's going to be good, and I think it will be a departure from what we've seen in the past, so it will definitely be interesting to see. There we go.
I get it. He's pissed at Batman. What's new?
You may want to do a quick head count.
Control room's mine.
Okay, so Austin, imagine if instead of just doing like what they've done with challenge maps, what if they added like customizable challenge maps and you could add bosses to different maps and stuff? I think that'd be really cool. It would have to be a duel, kind of like the Ghost of Tsushima duels, and it wouldn't be able to be boss battles in the same way that they've been portrayed in the Arkham games. But I think that customization, or the story creator mode that they did in Assassin's Creed Odyssey, I mean, imagine if they brought that to a Batman game. That would provide pretty much an infinite amount of content for the community. Boss rush mode for challenge maps, yeah. I did not see that guy there because I was looking at the chat. See, but look, like, it makes you finish the takedown animation before it'll let you react. That's what frustrates me. That's like an example of what frustrates me.
Hey, Max. I know you can hear me. I want you to hurt these guys. They're nothing to me.
There we go.
Blackgate to send me underground? There's gotta be easier ways to make a living. Noises. I can't tell what's what.
Oh, is someone missing? I keep losing count.
You heard, Joker. Man down, man down. What are you doing? I need help.
These guys ever grouped together? Yeah, they actually, they just went back to back for a minute.
Are you blind? Look down on the ground. Something down there, and I don't like it.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Look at my health. Oh, that's some funny crap.
It's like you just want an outbreak of Titan-enhanced mutant babies climbing over Gotham.
Okay, so here's the funny thing about that Bash guy who was in here earlier, is that I actually turned off comments on my video where I talk about pros and cons of Microsoft potentially buying Warner Brothers games. And I got so much hate, and I just turned off comments, not because I was like upset or offended, but just because I was getting tired of waking up to like 5 death threats because I said that I don't like exclusivity. What's funny is that like he's a troll, and he's like, I forgot there weren't knife takedowns in this one. He's like trying to make me feel upset or something, but I'm the one who's literally like, you know, just doing YouTube for fun. I really have no issue if people disagree with me. And he's the one, and to me, it's just funny to watch because he's wasting his time. He's wasting his morning when he could be doing something productive. I don't care that he disagrees with me or even that he, hates or if he perceives me as a Sony pony. That's his business. I don't give a crap. But for him to come sit in, and just randomly waste his morning, like, it just seems very bizarre. And I just don't know why you'd waste your time like that, so. He's probably a fan who was trolling. It could be. Regardless what he... I mean, notice I wasn't upset until he started making racist comments, and then it's like, nope, we're done with this. Well, clearly he was a troll. That's the point. It just seems like it's a waste of time to come in and do that when there's so many other productive ways to spend your day. And it's just... I don't know. I think that people feed the trolls too often by getting upset and letting their comments anger them. I mean, I almost feel bad. It's like, dude, you could be doing so much, and here you are, throwing insults and making racist statements and just being a dick. Like, Luke, we had a guy in here who was trolling and being very belligerent, and then I had to ban him because he was making racist comments, so... Yeah, he was, yes, he was, starting to go off with the N-word, and he was talking very inappropriately about a individual who we all know who was murdered, and just making very tone-deaf and inappropriate statements. Yeah, I'm gonna set up moderators, at some point. I'm just kind of waiting until, like, I don't know, I get a little bit more of an audience. It's a difficult statement to make because I am trying to, like, of course, build my audience. I'm trying to get monetized. I enjoy doing YouTube, but at the end of the day, it's not my end goal. I mean, within the next 2 years, I don't know that I'll be making YouTube videos. Just depending on where my career takes me and stuff. Deal with lots of trolls who crap on the Batman movie for the laughs. Again, I'm trying to get monetized, so I'm not cussing. But, yeah, it's funny because I think we can enjoy all the DC properties. I don't understand why people get triggered anytime there's a movie that isn't directed by Snyder. I don't understand why people get so disgruntled that Snyder is getting to release his cut of Justice League. Like, we're winning. We're getting a Batman trilogy. We're getting so much freaking great stuff. I mean, you don't have to love Shazam because you're also getting the Snyder cut. You're also getting a Batman movie. Like, we're getting so much variety and so much. I just don't get why it has to be so toxic. It's very odd to me. Yeah, so Austin says that his issue with the Snyder Cut is that it kind of feels like it's rewarding the toxic behavior. For me, it's funny that they think that it's actually because of that. It's not, or the Snyder cultists, I mean. And when I say Snyder cultists, if you like Zack Snyder films, that doesn't qualify you. I like Zack Snyder films, but I also acknowledge that his take on Batman is not the most comic accurate, and I don't think he's the only director who can make a good DC film. It's funny that some of the most insensitive people who were part of the Snyder Cut movement, and I don't think all of them were inappropriate or, rude. I think a lot of them just did want to see his cut of the film. But it's funny that the ones who were the most extreme think that it's really because of them. The only reason that this cut is being made is because they're trying to sell subscriptions to HBO Max, and they know that that's a market. So they're not reviving Snyder's vision for the DCEU. They're not canceling Matt Reeves' Batman. They're not doing any of that weird stuff. Like, they're very plainly releasing this because they know that people want to see it and because they want to sell HBO subscriptions. They're a business. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that. It's just they're a business. And they're trying to make money. Yeah, so the thing with... Well, yeah, so Ethan says that he didn't like Birds of Prey. I thought it was fine. I enjoyed it. I didn't think it was a great movie, but I did think Shazam was really good. People will say that I am an MCU shill for that, even though I don't really like the MCU that much. You know, I love the Dark Knight trilogy. I loved Joker. And that's the great thing is, like, even if there's something that doesn't quite fit your personal taste for a film like Birds of Prey, there's another thing like Joker or this new Batman trilogy. So we get this huge variety. And so it is kind of a risk because then you get a lot of people who don't love Birds of Prey, but you also had a lot of people who didn't really like Joker that much. So it's a good balance that kind of gives... It allows everyone to win, pretty much. And yes, anytime you say Ben Affleck isn't coming back, they're like, you're just a hater. It's like, no, it's because Ben Affleck himself said he's tired of playing Batman and doesn't want to anymore. That's just because he doesn't know that people want him back. No, he knows that people wanted his movie. He just did not want to keep playing Batman. He wanted to look out for his mental health. Okay. I think I have to go right. I think if you go this way, it's locked.
This island belongs to me.
Alright, so we have the Poison Ivy boss battle. And then we have the Joker boss battle. One of the worst endings in a game. It's right up there with the BioShock final boss battle in like great game that has a horrible final battle.
You will fail.
Ethan says what I love about Joker is that politics is center. Some I agree with. Some I didn't, but it simply opens a discussion and doesn't try to... Yeah, so that's exactly the same reason I like Joker. I mean, I think Joker is a great movie, and it's the type of entertainment that I personally really gravitate toward, because it's more than just like kind of a mindless action film. There's like a lot of nuance to it, and I've never been of the opinion that you have to agree with a film or a game to appreciate it. There's a lot of things in The Last of Us 2 that I wouldn't necessarily endorse myself, but just the fact that they're willing to talk about it, but that they're not trying to force my opinion on it, I think is really good. And actually, like, speaking of The Last of Us 2, can I just say that is the perfect way to do a gay or a trans character. They absolutely killed it, because what they did was... I cared about Ellie, I cared about Lev, I cared about Dina. They wrote these characters very well, but they didn't make their sexuality or their gender relevant to who they were as a character. It was part of them, but it wasn't like what defined them. It wasn't like they were making references to how gay they were every 2 seconds, and it wasn't like, you know, consistently brought up like, oh, by the way, I'm a tranny. Like, it was like, that wasn't even part of it. It was like, they were just two great characters, and those personal experiences that we all have had shaped their life experience. So I thought that was handled very well. I actually thought that The Last of Us 2 really excelled, and they kind of always have in that medium. And it's interesting to go from, you know, Ubisoft saying, oh yeah, female main characters don't sell, to The Last of Us 2 being one of the top selling PS4 games, and it has Ellie solely on the cover. So I think there's definitely something to be said for that. I think that they have figured out representation. And it's something that, like, as a filmmaker, as someone who has written a lot of screenplays, it's kind of interesting because if you are trying really hard to, like, to like open representation, if you're like trying really hard to be woke or whatever, your screenplays come off as kind of crappy. But if you're just very genuine and write them as good characters as you would any other character, then I think that's true equality, and it's a disservice to treat those characters different. At least in my personal opinion. Like, they should be written with the same care and same attention and same love that you write any other character. Because ultimately, that's all they are. They aren't different. And I keep saying that, and I'm worried that that will come off as sounding bad, but they aren't different, is the ultimate thing. Writing a gay character is no different than writing for a straight character, because at the end of the day, they are not different. They are both good characters that you can write. It's the same reason that I think, like, the Mary Sue argument is really pointless. People are like, female characters are so underwritten. It's like, how about you just say that character is so underwritten? You know? Is Rey an underwritten character in Star Wars? Yeah, arguably she really is. But is that because she's a girl? No, not at all. She's an underwritten character. She would be underwritten if it was a man character as well. So.
Come to me. Ivy's waiting. I've got myself a little security, Batman. They'll just die if anything happens to me.
Let's get this over with.
I am stronger than you, little man.
This boss battle feels so shoehorned in. I hate it. I actually, like, a lot of people I know agree with me on Joker, the final boss battle with Joker at the end of this game. I actually think the whole third act, everything we've played today, I think is the weakest part of the game. I like it, but it just doesn't have the same intrigue that the rest of the game does. It feels like it kind of is very anticlimactic. It becomes kind of fetch questy. Evade, throw. Evade, throw. Yeah. This is the pinnacle of the Arkham formula. Yes, Austin. Thank you. I have always said that I don't like Poison Ivy's look in this game. Or really any of the Arkham games. I actually feel like she's an underwritten character, in my personal opinion. In Arkham Knight, she got an interesting arc that isn't something that's generally done, where she was almost more of an ally to Batman than an enemy. It almost felt kind of meaningless. It didn't feel very earned, in my opinion. It kind of feels like they sexualized her to just for no real reason. Like, she doesn't have much of a character. She's kind of just a plot device. Yeah, I agree. On difficult, this boss battle is harder than the Joker one. But that's not... I think it's just because the Joker one is so bad that it...
I'll kill you for that.
The Joker one is actually, like, fairly easy. I really hate it. It's pretty much just regular Arkham combat like this, where you're just fighting people. Yeah, I thought in Injustice 2 she was really, really good, especially her design. Yeah, I agree with that. I actually think Injustice 2 had killer designs for pretty much everybody. Arkham is usually really good. It can be somewhat hit or miss, though.
Caught like a bat in a trap.
I just heard someone come home upstairs, so if I suddenly pause and mute for a minute, just know that I have to talk to someone. Irogen is misogynistic for not liking Poison Ivy's character. I mean... That's pretty funny. Yeah, I don't really like any of the boss battles in, honestly, any of the Arkham games. I like the Mr. Freeze one. So that is a lie. I do like the Mr. Freeze ones, and like there are some that are tolerable. Like the Deathstroke one, it's good. I don't think it's great like many people do. I think it's a good boss battle, but and like I just think when they do encounters rather than full-on battles, they excel. Like the Scarecrow stuff in this game, magnificent. The Mr. Freeze stealth stuff, that's great. I think they do their best work when they think outside the box and refrain from just doing like a, you know, like a super video gamey boss. Which Rogues Gallery member has had the best design? I don't know. I really like what they did with Joker. I like how it looks a lot like the animated series, but in a more photorealistic way. I also... So, this might be a hot take. My second favorite villain in the Arkham games is Mr. Freeze. He's had a full arc. If you play Cold Cold Heart, and then Arkham City, and then Seasons of Infamy. He gets a full arc that I think is excellent. And I like that they kind of went from him being that goofy Arnold Schwarzenegger thing in the Batman and Robin film to being kind of terrifying, honestly. Like the robotic voice and the red eyes and the condensation on the mask that kind of covers his face. It's a really well thought out design, in my opinion. We're going to the... Which one? Alright. So in retrospect, I probably shouldn't have done this stream right now. I think I was too tired. I rambled for a little bit about a topic I wanted to do. I've failed miserably at a Predator encounter like 30 times, so... At least this one's done. I can put this playthrough in the can. Firefly, Mr. Freeze, Scarecrow, Deathstroke, all top tier designs. Absolutely, yeah, I agree with that. Okay. So I was going the wrong way then. Okay, do I consider myself right-brained, emotions, creativity, or left-brained, fact-based logic? I am very, very right-brained. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason that I've always kind of made jokes that, like, I don't think I could do anything other than film. Just because my brain excels in that, in the creativity aspect, but when it comes to, like, math or anything like that, I'm just terrible.
Are you excited, Bats? I mean, we've been building up to this point all night. Don't tell me you've not been looking forward to it. I know I have. Surprise!
So the whole ending of this game, in my opinion, kind of feels like Rocksteady went to Paul Dini and was like, okay, this is really good, but we want some boss battles at the end. So they kind of just wrote in a bunch of, like, bosses that don't have tons of development near the end.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Do you really think... So, Austin, do you really think that Two-Face... Are you talking from a design perspective? Or like, just storytelling? Because I agree with you, storytelling. Two-Face has no development in this series.
Why didn't you stop Batman?
Sony Pony, I actually think that Two-Face got even slightly worse than Black Mask, because Black Mask got screwed over. Yeah, Austin, I agree with you on storytelling, yeah. Black Mask got screwed over. Two-Face doesn't have a story at all to get screwed over in. He's just there. He's like, I don't know. I wish he'd gotten, like, a substantial role in Arkham Knight. He was in the CGI trailer. They were, like, kind of marketing him as a big deal. Yeah, Ethan, I agree with that sentiment of Joker playing more of a backseat role. So think about it this way. Like, imagine if instead of Joker being a main villain in the game, what if you have to, like, go visit him in Arkham Asylum once or twice because he might have information, and it's almost like a Silence of the Lambs type thing where you like, have to get information on what's going on. So he's not playing a role in the plot, but he's still, like, relevant. He still has a purpose for being there. Okay, so in regards to voice acting, I'm not super well versed. That is something where I'm not super familiar with tons of voice actors. I'm more familiar with live action actors, and I mean, I do recognize... That's not to say that I think that voice actors have it easier or anything, because at this point, they're doing full-fledged facial capture performances. They are literally doing what real actors do, except their job is arguably more difficult, because they're acting with each other in goofy suits instead of being on set and having, like, full props to work with. So the performances that you see in, like, The Last of Us 2, I think are stunning because of the conditions that they were working in, and I just think that they do such a great job. So I don't really know who I would have in mind to play any specific role. In terms of Roger Craig Smith not playing Batman in Gotham Knights, we don't really know who is yet, but my guess is because Roger Craig Smith isn't really the favorite voice of Bruce Wayne. He was really only in Origins as a stand-in for Kevin Conroy because they were making Arkham Knight at the same time. You know, and he's been in stuff like he was in the Batman Ninja movie, but I just think that there are other more famous or more, I don't know, just more iconic people who can voice him. This doesn't even feel like it's part of the same game. Like, this part is just so bad.
You're ruining my big night! Months of planning down the crapper! I just wanted to bring down your grim facade and for once let you see the world as I see it, giggling in a corner and bleeding. But you've denied me.
That is a good line. I do like that line where he says that.
Nothing to live for.
Red Hood, I don't think PS5 will actually last 5 years. I think it will be longer. They said something similar about the Xbox One and PS4 when they released, I believe. They kind of made it sound like, oh yeah, we'll have the next systems up very soon too. Generally, 5 years is the midpoint. Generally, consoles are about an 8-year long thing. If they are 5 years, I don't think we're going to jump into like PS6 and Xbox Series Z or whatever. I think that they'll start turning more to streaming, which I actually like. I would be way more obliged to pay for specific streaming services that offer games with exclusives. This is...
Something to talk about. Two freaks in a fight to the death. And for one night only, please.
I really don't like this part. Paul Dini, how could you do this? How could you do us dirty like this? Come on, man. Okay, but the reason that Paul Dini still comes on top in this whole series... Yeah, how did he get a mohawk, right? Do I think graphics will get so realistic we'll ask for downgrades? No. I think we're already pretty much there. I think that mainly at this point, graphical enhancements won't be major. It'll be slow, but it'll be different things like just improved texture quality. They'll figure out how to do better particle systems, better anti-aliasing. I think it'll just be improvements that add more lifelike stuff. Like The Last of Us 2, I think is pretty close. It's probably the closest we've gotten to photorealism in a game. And if they spent a lot more time just making every single texture and model as pristine as possible, it technically, I think, could look photorealistic. So I think we're pretty much there. It's more just we're going to not see as big of upgrades as we have in the past. Sequels shouldn't take 4 years. I think so. I absolutely think sequels should take 4 years to make, because in terms of video games, they are much bigger than they once were. I would rather get a game every 2 to 4 years rather than have Assassin's Creed clones. Assassin's Creed I hate. We've gotten a game every year. They're probably the most consistent franchise that we've seen outside of stuff like, I don't know, you could argue other stuff, but I think that Assassin's Creed is almost a travesty at this point in the gaming industry. I think they've become really bad, very generic. And, I mean, if you want quality, that's just how long it takes. Games are much bigger, much more in-depth, have much more attention to detail than they used to. And I would prefer a Batman game, for example, or a Spider-Man game that takes advantage of all the technology that it can, rather than just kind of doing rinse and repeats. So... think photorealism could be horrifying, like shooting something that looks... It could. And, I mean... Last of Us 2 is actually a good example on that. I mean, there were parts in that I actually, like, genuinely got kind of grossed out with, because I was like, this looks too real.
I think it's a unanimous decision. I am the greatest.
That is an interesting thought, Ethan. I've never really thought of that, in all honesty. Like, but I think that's a very fair point. I think that there are certain aspects, when it comes to photorealism in games, for example, I don't know. That isn't it. I'll have to think about that, because that is an interesting point to bring up. Do I think Spider-Man PS5 will come out next year or 2022? It's going to be 2022. This Miles game is a buffer because they know it's going to take them at least another year to finish up the next Peter Parker game. So my guess is anywhere between 2021 and 2022. If it was 2021, it would be very late 2021.
I'm done here. I will march on Gotham flanked by an army of...
My guess, though, is 2022. I don't see them being quite done.
What are you doing?
Do I think the Mad Hatter section they were going to have in this game would have destroyed the pacing? I think the third act is already paced so badly, I would have, I think, kind of enjoyed just having someone else to help spice it up a little bit. So Miles is going to be like the Batman Arkham Origins of Spider-Man, kind of, except a little bit smaller. It's not going to be on the same scale that the first, that PS4 was. It's going to be probably 20 to... probably bigger than that. It'll probably be about 40% of what Spider-Man PS4 was. It'll be bigger than the DLC, but it won't be a full game. No, Irogen does not have a deep meaning. It, I actually don't really remember how I came up with it. I think that there was like a project that I was working on with some friends, like an indie game that we never finished, and that was like the working title, if I remember correctly. I'll actually have to ask and see if any of them remember.
Mind your head, bats! I'll give you something for morning news.
Red Hood asked something along the lines of like, so shouldn't... They'll already have the mechanics for a Spider-Man game, so why will it take them another 4 years to make a new one? The thing is that it, nowadays, that's not... The mechanics aren't what take games so long to make. Those are relatively easy. What makes them difficult is the motion capture and the attention to detail and the writing. It takes a very long time to perfect that, and games are becoming so cinematic and so detail-oriented that... and you don't just want to do copy and pastes and rinses and repeats. Like I said with Assassin's Creed, I'm so fed up with it because I feel like I've played the same game 30 times. Charlotte says, I'm watching you play this and just realized how badly I'm at playing this game. You should have seen me earlier. I died about 10 times on a Predator encounter. I'm inconsistent. Sometimes I'm okay, and sometimes I'm awful.
I'm fine, Barbara. The GCPD finally has control of the asylum. Doctors are treating the injured, but it looks like it'll take some time. All super criminals are back in custody. mess in there. And the venom-enhanced inmates are returning to normal. Though for some, the process can be quite painful.
Dad, how are you doing?
I'll survive. See you tonight, Barbara. Shame about your car.
About Venom as anti-hero, do you think he's weak as an anti-hero? I think he's better as a Spider-Man villain personally, but no, I don't think he's a bad anti-hero.
Stay safe, Jim.
And there you have it, folks. Batman Arkham Asylum. I do like these end credits. I like that like kind of pop art style. It's really cool. This remaster is ugly. It's weird. Some of it looks a little better than the original, but I do wish that they'd rebuilt it a lot more. Charlotte says, I get an 8x combo and I get excited. Don't judge yourself too harshly. You'll get there. It's, playing Ghost of Tsushima recently reminded me of what it was kind of like to play this game at first, for kind of the first few times. And, it's interesting. I like those combat scenarios where it's kind of difficult. It's definitely a learning curve, but once you get it, it becomes really fun. I used to be really good at Arkham combat, and then I just haven't played them in so long, so I kind of suck now. Character models look bad. They do. They look better in the original. They kind of look waxy in the original, but that's more what they were going for. This one, they kind of took a game that was intended to look like a comic book and tried to make it look photorealistic, and I don't think that paid off very well. Wish PS Now wasn't crap. Like to play Origins again. Yeah, that is one thing that Xbox has over the PS4 is the backwards compatibility. That is nice that I can still play Origins. But yeah, it is kind of a bummer. But I don't think Warner Brothers will ever acknowledge that again because they don't view it as a success. They do not view Arkham Origins as a successful endeavor, even though it was kind of their own fault that game flopped, but yeah. It would be cool if me and Slick played Arkham Origins on multiplayer. That would be cool. I think that they took down the Xbox servers, though. So I don't know how we do it, because I don't have a PS3, so... Let's see if I remember how to play as Joker quick. Alright. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. I'm going to just do this really briefly, but yeah, I'm wrapping it up. I've been going for about 2 hours. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I have fun doing these when I have time to. Today, admittedly, I was probably a little bit too tired to do it. So if I was stammering and rambling and not as fun to listen to, I apologize, but the watch time will go a long way. So thank you all very much. Yeah, you can add me on PSN. I haven't checked that in forever. I probably have a bunch of requests and stuff. So hopefully you guys are seeing that I'm not actually that bad at this game. Oh, that was bad. So just so you guys know, when I do record video to put behind my videos and stuff, when I record gameplay and stuff, it takes me forever. Because if I mess up once, the Batman Arkham Videos, who is a freaking robot, I don't know how he does it, he's conditioned me that gameplay has to be perfect, so I will restart something like 20 times before I finally get a playthrough that I'm happy with.
Send me whoever you want. I'll kill them all and leave them smiling.
Also, everybody make sure to follow me on Twitter if you don't. Make sure to subscribe if you are not. Okay. I just shot Gordon for that. We are not dealing with that. Well, my first 2 rounds were good. I can say that at least. Yeah, Arkham Videos would be like shaking his head if he was watching this right now. He'd be like, this is an embarrassment. How dare you disgrace the Arkham games with this awful gameplay. I'm actually, it's kind of funny because I'm actually like way better at Arkham City and even better at Arkham Knight. Going back to Asylum is a little clunky, but I still love it. The atmosphere, the game, I think it's fantastic. It's still like an 8 out of 10 at least. It's a phenomenal game. Alright, well I don't know what I'm going to stream next, but I'm going to wrap it up now. Thanks again everybody for watching. Make sure to follow me at Iron... What even is it? What the heck? IronGamer15. At IronGamer15. Make sure to subscribe if you aren't. And my PSN... I think that's it right there at the bottom. Signed in, J Arkham Gamer. I don't remember if I changed it or if that's my PSN. I'm not as familiar with some of the PlayStation stuff as I am Xbox, just because I've had the Xbox longer. I mainly just do the PlayStation for gaming, but cool. All right, well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Sorry about all the stammering. Again, I'm pretty sleep deprived, but we'll see you guys in the next one.